Please welcome Mansi Chaturvedi, Director of Program Assurance and Strategy, Bloomberg Chief Information Security Office.
Hello, my fellow cyber sisters and allies. It is so good to be back in this room today. You know, I've been on a bit of a WiCyS hiatus. I wasn't here the last couple years. I recently took on a new, demanding, but very rewarding role. Thank you. I have a 19-month-old girl at home, and it's just been wonderful. It's really shifted my perspective. Suddenly, that old idea of work-life balance becomes less of a goal and more of a daily exercise and triage. Before becoming a mom, I used to really stress about work. And now, I stress about life equally. So I guess work-life balance achieved, right? No, but it is so good to be back here and feel the energy in this room. Thank you for having me. My name is Mansi, and I'm the Director of Program Assurance and Strategy at Bloomberg. I'm within Bloomberg's Chief Information Security Office, and my team is responsible for measuring and communicating our security program, ultimately helping with a more data-driven security strategy. Now, if you don't know what any of that meant, don't worry about it. We're going to get into it in a little bit. But I didn't get my start in security. I started at the big banks on Wall Street, and I attended a conference in 2014 called Women on Wall Street, or WOWS. It's not around anymore, and there was a professor from Columbia Business School, Professor Catherine Phillips. And she was walking up on stage, and she was taking the room in, she was getting mic'd, and she was noticing that women who did not know each other were speaking to each other about work, life, their kids, even their shoes. And so she opened her talk with one question. Ladies, how comfortable and at ease do you feel in this room? That ease and comfort that you feel here is felt by your male colleagues every day. Because for them to be in a male-dominated room does not require extra effort. And that was just new perspective for me back then. The thing Professor Phillips was saying was that it's going to take all of us to make this the norm and not the exception. It's going to take all of us to build spaces like this. So I really thank WiCyS, especially Dr. Siraj and Lynn Dome, for keeping this space strong and for having me here. And a huge thank you to my firm and management at Bloomberg for being a longtime supporter of WiCyS. Jason Rouse, the CISO of Bloomberg, Ozzie Monroe, the Deputy CISO of Bloomberg, it's not just about saying yes for them, they've shown up here today. They continue to support these efforts. So thank you. Now, how many of you are just starting out in cybersecurity? I want to see hands if you're looking for an internship, your first job, you're transitioning into this industry. This is the beginning of something important. That's a lot of hands in this room. That's really exciting. Today I'm going to talk about what I learned early on in my career and what continues to serve me even today. So as I'd mentioned, I started my career on post-crisis Wall Street. Because you know, nothing's this great career decision like jumping into finance during a global meltdown. Back in 2008, the banks were collapsing and reputations were in tatters. The banks that managed to survive had new regulation they had to implement, and they faced regulations, more regulations, tightening of regulations, and they had to regain customer trust. Now, for those of you that have been in cybersecurity for the last few years, this might sound a little familiar. Our industry is no stranger to disruption. Major breaches have led to industry-wide change and more regulation, and we all have the constant challenge of maintaining customer trust. A mentor of mine with a lot of Wall Street experience, he told me once, crises can take years off your life, but add depth to your resume. He knew how to stay positive in chaos. So for those of you starting out in cybersecurity now, it might feel like you're jumping into the middle of a crisis with fire drills every day, but that's really where you'll learn the most. I have 3 pieces of advice to share. Okay, no matter your industry, Wall Street, cybersecurity, or the larger tech industry. The first one is that chaos is the classroom. Okay, embrace the unexpected, adapt quickly, and know that how you show up during tough times can shape your future. And then when you do the work, number 2, don't stop there. Learn to tell the story behind it. That's how you build credibility and drive action. And finally, through it all, find your people and build your support system. Now let's talk about that first one. People notice how you show up during tough times, especially during stressful times of change or crisis. Actions you take are noticed and can shape your current standing and potentially your future opportunities. Your reaction to change, your ability to continue to do your job, and your ability to remain effective in chaos is always under consideration. So, let me talk to you about a time when people noticed my actions during a challenging time. It was about 7 years ago. I was the risk management for one of Bloomberg's trading units, and that business was going through a lot of change. Everything about the way we operated was about to change. Nobody knew where we were going to land. So instead of waiting for more guidance, I did my job with the little information I had. And sometimes that means you're going to end up doing more than you actually need to, but I tried to be smart about it. I launched a new data-driven approach to risk management that would work for whatever came next for the business. I launched it at a big senior leadership meeting, and I focused my presentation towards those people. I'm talking the CEOs of the business, COOs, CFOs. Well, Bloomberg's new CISO happened to be in the room during that meeting, and he was listening. After the meeting, he caught me, introduced himself, and said, "Great presentation. Do you mind scheduling a couple follow-up meetings?" No problem. It was at that second follow-up meeting where he mentioned that he's thinking of starting up a business information security office, and would I consider joining? Now, I was caught way off guard. Okay, I barely knew if cybersecurity was spelled as one word or two. No. Any role in the security division felt way too important, and I didn't need to be there. So I did what many of us do, and I talked myself down and out of it. I said, I don't know anything about computers. And that's the word I use, computers. And then I said, I'm pretty sure all my passwords are the same. He gave me a slow nod, and he goes, okay, you got to change your passwords. And then he said something extraordinary. But we'll teach you the rest. And don't ever interview against yourself again. That was an interview. It was one of the most pivotal interviews of my careers, and I didn't even know it was happening. You know, he believed in me when I doubted myself. So of course I said yes. I took on the new role. And Jason, who happens to be in the audience today, continuing to be supportive, has stayed true to his word and taught me quite a bit. He's also taught me that none of us know whether cybersecurity is one word or two. But this brings me to my second point. What was it, this is something that has kept me at Bloomberg for 10 years, but this is not the norm everywhere, right? What was it that really got me that BSO role? I wasn't the most technical person in the room. It's not about just doing the work. It's about communicating it. I got it because I communicated clearly and brought the right people in the room. Those are soft skills, and I gotta say, there's nothing soft about them. These are the skills that move missions forward, but so often they're an afterthought. If you watch TED Talks, graduation speeches, or even any of the presentations on this stage or any of the breakout rooms, it might feel like these folks have something innate, or they know more, so they're the best communicators of that information. That might be true for some people, but that's not the majority, so let's talk about that for a second. Steve Jobs is known for being a master presenter. Okay, his iPhone launch in 2007 has been studied extensively, and he rehearsed for that for weeks. He was known for obsessing over every word and every gesture. He made sure his delivery felt effortless. He practiced until he got there. That's not charisma, that's craft. This just shows that soft skills can be learned, but they're not taught in a structured way. Oftentimes, their schools and corporate training budgets focus on technical skills, and rightfully so. But that soft skills part, that's entirely up to us. Now, I'd love to tell you I knew all of this from the start. But those first few presentations in the beginning of my career, my voice was just unsure of itself. And my slides would be bullet points, and that's it. And I thought the key would be that I knew the answer to every question because I'd done the work. The presentation doesn't matter. I've done the work, and I can showcase my knowledge when they ask the questions. So when the questions came, they didn't come to me. They went straight to my manager. I realized I hadn't communicated in a way that gave people confidence in me. I didn't tell the story in a compelling way. It's not just about doing the work or knowing the work. It's about being seen as the person that owns the work. There's something about failures, right? And those were definitely failures. Those early failures really tend to stick. And because we can't let them define us, we have to let them refine us. I practiced, I experimented, I learned to speak differently depending on the room that I was in. On the trading floor, you had to come direct, correct, no extra points for fluff. In a meeting room, people want to know what you're thinking. Why do you believe what you believe? So I learned when to push and when to pause. And if something wasn't working, I didn't dig in. I found a different way or got feedback. And over time, I got better. Not perfect, but better. And knowing the importance of communicating, not just to be heard, but to be understood, has really stayed with me. So, am I good at this now, after all that work? No. This is something I continue to work on even today. In my current role, my team's key responsibilities include preparing materials and presentations for board meetings. We're shaping messaging. We're communicating the more complex aspects of our program to technical and non-technical folks. Our goal is just to drive better security decision-making. We don't just communicate with words and narratives. We're looking for thoughtful metrics and trends. So how do I know that my content is working? There's practice for presentation, but how do I know the content is good? So I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy. Okay, stand-up comics are great at their rhythm, their timing, their word choice. It's all crafted for impact. So many punchlines, if said a different way, would not get a laugh. So I used to go to the Comedy Cellar in New York City down in the Village fairly often, and it's one of those small comedy clubs where on any given night, a famous comic might stop by unannounced. Oh, by the way, as a total aside, speaking of New York City, Bloomberg is headquartered in New York City. All of our cybersecurity internships are in New York City, so if you're looking for a summer of career growth and celebrity sightings, come see the Bloomberg table right here afterwards. But it was during one of those visits to the Comedy Cellar, Hasan Minhaj stopped by. And for those of you that might not know Hasan Minhaj, he's got several specials on Netflix. He's former Daily Show correspondent, and he's not just funny, he's a great storyteller. And so he walks up with a deck of note cards, really thick stack, and he's going through his set. And he's sorting the note cards in two stacks. The jokes that landed and the jokes that didn't. And I'm realizing he's not just looking for laughs, he's looking at facial expressions and body language. Did he take something too far, not far enough? And just like that, I was witnessing the craft behind the charisma. He was clearly preparing for a larger special, but wanted to test out that material with a smaller audience. Now, I've heard this is a common process for comedians. Rumor has it Tracy Morgan used to do this at Benihana's. But, so the venue doesn't quite matter. It's just the process of testing. This is something my team does. We test content. We build out presentations, narratives, visualizations, and then we archive about 60 to 70% of it. Not because it's wrong, but maybe because it's too complex or we're not getting the reaction we expected. No, we're not looking for laughs. We're looking for an aha moment. Did this shape your thinking around security? Is this helping with security decision making? Sometimes a lot of work goes into something that nobody sees, but that's the process, and we do it under tight timelines because the stakes are high and we want to make an impact. It's a mixture of soft and hard skills, but does any of it sound soft? So, what if I told you that none of what I've said so far has been my biggest career challenge? The biggest challenge in my career has had little to do with any particular role or responsibility. It was that I had difficulty disconnecting from the workplace, especially during times of crisis. I'd leave work continuously working through puzzles. So this brings me to my last point. Build your support system. Find your people. In the early days, I used to lean on my parents or my friends, but I realized they didn't quite understand what I was going through. It was my colleagues that really understood the challenges. We leaned on each other to get through some of the darkest days of our industry. And I gotta say, in those days, the group chat was lit. You are going to go through professional challenges, and it's important to have several group chats. A good group chat has gotten me through the worst of it. For me, I've needed a minimum of 3. Okay, the first, you need a chat of people who've known you since the beginning of time. I'm talking your high school crew, your college friends. And then, number 2, you need a group chat of people that you work with or from your firm that have been there a while and really understand the culture. And finally, your most important one, you're going to need at least one friend in the department that you work in. Your personal friends will never fully understand your work culture, but they'll sympathize and they'll know you, and they're going to send you the memes that really hit. Your work friends, they'll understand the challenges you're facing but not know you, and they'll tell you what's worked for them, the things that they've done, and that's really important information. The work friend in your department, the MVP, will be able to really listen and understand and even offer up context from what they know that may be important to the situation that you're in. The best words I've ever seen written to me in a group chat are, "No, you're not crazy." And I have needed that. I gotta say, these days I'm pretty active in my mom chats, and I've needed to hear those words more and more. And you really need a group chat for every phase of life. So, with all of this work I've done, the crises I've navigated, embracing a new industry, learning to tell the story, and having built a pretty decent support system, that's definitely helped with confidence. But there's so much more to go, and I know I'll be okay because I'm showing up with the willingness to grow. Here's the reality. When you're in the job, you don't want to feel like you'll mess it up. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when you feel like an imposter in the very room you've worked so hard to get into. I know I still do. But despite that, I'm here to say no matter what our experiences and our fears, we have to keep pushing forward. We cannot stop. Challenging times are not the times to disengage and doom scroll. Sometimes we all need a little reminder, a little nudge to be bold and not be so hard on ourselves. Let's do that for each other. You've met some wonderful women this week. Form a group chat. This week, I have met women who are unafraid. I've met allies who understand our challenges. I am so excited about the fresh infusion of hope I've received this week. And I want to take all this energy back to our desks next week and support each other to build the spaces we need at every level, all the way to the top. WiCyS, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.